Hello there, and welcome to this video talking about 3 major mods that I used in my most recent XCOM 2 playthrough. And the mods I'm going to be talking about are the RPG Overhaul mod, which completely changes the way you build your soldiers, the Biodivision mod, which is basically, I guess, an upgrade for Advent. So you've got these bio troop units that spew acid, and they tend to be a little bit more durable as well. In short, and then you've got the Hive, which functions as a separate faction. It's basically Chrysalids gone rogue, is what that is. So there we go, there's a very 3 succinct definitions, I guess, of the mods. As simple as I can make it. Let's begin with the RPG Overhaul mod, since we are around the barracks, and yeah, we can talk about that. So what the mod does is it completely changes the way that you build your soldiers. You can essentially, depending on what you decide to do at the start of the game, I went for basically the Commander's Choice style, where I could choose what skill trees you went for. So basically you can go for any combination of soldier. So for instance, let's go with Big Red here. He is, in fact, soldier abilities. I went for Gunner, Sniper, Gunslinger. So his primary weapon could be, well, the thing is with the RPG Overhaul mod as well, you can kind of give anybody any weapon for the most part. So basically this gave him gunner abilities, sniper abilities, with whatever weapon. And I generally went for the Gatling gun here, for instance, as you can see. So he had saturation fire, you know, then he had pistol as a backup. There's just so many combinations you could do. If we go one down here, that was, I guess, a more conventional build, what you saw there. This was a little bit unconventional. Goose here, primary weapon. What's this? A sword? Secondary? Grenadier? So yes, sword grenadier. This was a lot of fun. Grenadier, Ranger, and then Saboteur, which I did not use at all. I would not pick that again for him. Instead, I would probably go... I don't know. I do have a lot of problems with the Saboteur. One, because you kind of need the Claymore. Like, you're really relying on the Claymore. I guess if you have your primary 2 abilities as something that correspond to your primary weapon, then the Saboteur one does work quite well. Let's say you go for... specialist, whatever that is again, and then gunner or something like that. When I say specialist, I mean Overwatch. Sorry, Overwatch specialist. Oh, goodness me, what's wrong with me? I'm forgetting all the names of the trees. But yeah, I went for the custom one so I could mix and match a bunch of them. And this mod is a lot of fun. I really enjoyed it. I don't have many complaints about it. For instance, here, Mr. Human, I decided to make as close to an Advent officer as possible. And he went for infantry, so there we go, that's one of the trees. This is all your assault rifle style weapons. And then you've got Sentinel, Spotter, because it's got the Hollow Targeter, as that's a secondary thing. Yeah, so you generally had you had a bunch of primary abilities and a bunch of secondaries. So it'd be nice if I had somebody left in training that I could, I guess, show all the different trees there are. There are about 14 of them. But you can download some mods to increase the number of trees that you can select, which I'm actually going to be doing next time, to be fair, so I'm not done with this. I'm really not done with this. And like I say, some of the builds you can make are absolutely fantastic. Dio was a really good one here. So what he actually was pure gunslinger. Now there is an Akimbo class mod, I am going to be using that next time. But he went for medic, gunslinger, and then I just took saboteur because I wasn't sure what else to take. I think next time, though, do something similar, but we're definitely going to take medic again. I think that's really good for a gunslinger, I would say. Yeah, I must say. You get some good combination mods as well. I think for Andrea, builds, we went for Ranger, Scout, Gunslinger, so a little bit similar to Goose, but her primary weapon was her pistol, I think, or it was a sword if the pistol is a backup. So she had some ranged shooting ability, and then we also had the option to go down scoutiness if we wanted, or if she had higher combat intelligence. If you can get some soldiers of really high combat intelligence, you can get some absolutely ridiculous trees. Ridiculous sets of abilities. I mean, look at, like I was saying earlier, Big Red here. We took Trigger Happy, take a reaction shot every time a new group of enemies is revealed, and Death from Above and Chain Shot, because why not? His aim's so high. He had the highest aim of the campaign, I think. We had to do this. Trigger Happy, this ability, by the way. Oh my god, is it so much fun. It is very, very overpowered. I love it. I definitely will be using that again, but I will make sure that the aliens are appropriately upgraded as well. As they were this playthrough, actually. I think it was fairly evenly matched. I do think so. When it comes to your specialists, as in I'm talking about specialists in a traditional sense, so your gremlin users, you generally, you probably pair them with a standard primary weapon, like your infantry, but you could do something like grenadier. I mean, if you have the... yeah, you could do grenadier specialist, actually, which I might do next time. So the way that would work is there's a micro grenade launcher, which is, again, a separate mod, but you can use that as a primary weapon. So where is good old Spoon? He was that, in fact. So we had a micro grenade launcher, and that doubles your number of grenades. So then if we went for secondary, for him we went for holo targeter. We could even go specialist as an option for that. So there's so many combinations you could do, or you could, go for a sword, like I did as well up here. There's so many options. You also have the skirmisher tree as well. So here you go, you've got your skirmisher, so that's your ripjack as your secondary there. And something that you can't use as a primary. So there were certain things you couldn't use as a primary, that was one of them. The gauntlet as well, so that whether that's Rocketeer, Pyrotechnic, whatever the flamer one is, I can't remember, but yeah, in this case he didn't really have a proper primary, did he? Because I think I purely random rolled him, and that's not really the best build. Yeah, no, I must say, not quite. Yeah, that was good, that was good. You also pick up some interesting starting abilities. So Guetta, for instance, whenever you pick up 2 abilities to begin with here as a squaddy, and well, as you see, he got dealt Pacifist. So it's a necessary war, but that doesn't make it feel any better. Grants a squad-wide +5 defense bonus, that's good, but deals -20% damage with each subsequent hit. Now I believe that applies to the soldier, not the squad. Okay, so that's to the soldier individually. Every kill reduces the damage dealt by the pacifist. Okay, cool. So there you go. But yeah, there were loads of these different abilities, so if you made an Overwatch build, having Warden, a former law enforcer that worked for Advent, gains +20 aim on Overwatch shots, there's some really interesting things you can do there from the get-go of the campaign. You've got some, I guess, top-heavy, shall we say, starting abilities you can use, so ones that really benefit you early on. For instance, Igor here, he had Chemist, so you get a free acid grenade, basically. Which, imagine going into the campaign with that. Especially when dealing with Biodivision and Chrysalids who have armor. So that is kind of good. So there you go. I kind of randomly rolled these just to see what was going on. I think for you we went Hacker, right? Cyber Adept, +20 hacking. And then you obviously had Eagle Eye as well for those Overwatches. So yeah, you can really make some dynamic builds and some interesting combinations. Like I say, I want to do this again, so I think instead I'm going to go and do something interesting with, like, the Gauntlet, I think. Didn't really utilize that a lot. So for instance, Alan here was a Purifier, that's the word, Purifier, not Pyrotechnic. That's somebody who makes stage shows, right? And fireworks on stage. I don't know what I'm on about. Yeah, he is an Overwatcher, Medic, and yeah, Purifier. So, the Medic, that's, you just need the consumable for that, so that doesn't come out of your primary or secondary weapon slot. Sentinel, that just depends on whatever your weapon you're using here is. You could use a cannon if you wanted, or a shotgun. Then Purifier, that obviously came out of the Gauntlet, so he'd be a Flamer. So, he'll keep pretty much the same build again, is likely what's to happen. So, that's for sure. That's for sure. Yeah, Scott here, for instance, went Sniper Rocketeer, who ended up taking, this is another fantastic thing with the RPG Overhaul mod. It might have been a separate mod that installed these, but rocket launchers are kind of interesting. You get a little bit more range out of them, and they do more damage as well, but they do lower your mobility for every rocket that you have. However, you can transfer the rockets mid-mission if you want. So somebody else can carry them if they have high mobility, and they can pass them to the Rocketeer whenever they want to use them. Or maybe even at the start of the mission, I'm not too sure. So, I don't know if the mobility effect moves as the rocket is passed around. I have a feeling that probably doesn't happen, because I don't think we have that level of depth in the game. Be amazing if we did, but probably not. So yeah, again, so many interesting builds. I want to utilize Gunslinger again because it was an absolute blast. Other interesting abilities here were, I guess, Xenobiologist. This doesn't affect you, Spoon, but confers +1 bonus damage against targets who have been autopsied. So I think that was quite interesting as well. Like, if you give that to somebody who, you know, does get stuck in there and actually, you know, does some shooting or some slicing, that can be very, very useful in the end game once you've done everybody's abilities. So yeah, RPG Overhaul, really good. It definitely makes your soldiers a lot stronger than they would be in the base game, that is for sure. So you do need to make sure you probably balance it out. I would say so. Now, you could also go for random rolls. Like I said, the problem with random rolls is you can get stuff that's incompatible. So let's say, I'm trying to think of an example. You get a Rocketeer, a Saboteur, and you get a Grenadier. Okay, you could go for primary grenade launcher, secondary gauntlet. But I've forgotten what the last thing I said was. Yeah, the Saboteur thing, you're not really utilising that at all. So that's kind of the problem with going random. Of course, it could make it more interesting and maybe you just focus on the two main things, so there is a strong argument for that. That's a way to add a little bit of difficulty to it, potentially, is giving yourself very little choice in what skill trees you decide to give them. The way Psionics work was interesting as well. I like that I didn't have to stuff them in a tube other than the initial training. I was fine with that. And it also works as very much a secondary thing altogether, essentially. So Scythe is just a little thing on the side, that's all it is. It's a little sighting. And you can't even see where the abilities are. Yeah, no. So Marsha was our top psionic specialist here. And you kind of need to make a separate note of what abilities they have. So she actually got Stasis and I think Null Lance or Void Rift, one of the two. I think it was Null Lance she got. Where'd she go? She's up here somewhere. But yeah, you can, once you've done the initial training, you can then you still send them out on missions and whatnot. You don't need to give them a Psyamp. That's quite an interesting thing. So I don't know what difference it makes other than it obviously increases your Psi skill. In terms of abilities that do damage, I don't think it makes a difference. It probably does. Like, I'm probably wrong there. It probably does. But I found it was unnecessary and I just used it as like somebody with extra abilities. So being able to stasis someone, I mean, that's one of the best abilities in the game, being able to take an enemy out and, out until the following turn. You know, that group of the sector pod that you accidentally activated, you can just ignore it for one more turn if you want to finish off everybody else. So yeah, I think Psionics works nice because it can be massively overpowering if you really, sink your teeth into it. Plus, also, compared to vanilla, where it sucks in vanilla, it's definitely better because you can train them for a few days, send them out on a mission, and as long as they don't come back injured or tired, they go straight back into training. I think you might have to put them back in there manually, but the progress bar is as far in as it was. So let's say, you had 5 days left on this, and then you went out, came back, you still have 5 days left, and I'd put you back in the tube. So, pretty good, I must say. Yeah, that's the RPG Overhaul mob. There's loads to say on it at the same time as there isn't. Just lots of abilities, 50 plus initial starting abilities you can choose from. And I'm looking forward to adding some more classes to it, just to really sort of feel it out and give everybody a unique feel. That's the thing that I really like about the mod, is it gives every soldier a very, very unique feel. So Hoi here, for instance, this is a very, very good build. We got infantry, so she was, proficient with an assault rifle, medic, and then we had Marauder, which is the sawed-off shotgun, which is absolutely nasty. So that was for your general shooting. If anybody got too close, the shotgun came out. And then we had a medic, obviously, for some additional use. So yeah, really, really strong build there. And obviously make people feel very unique, like Goose, who was a grenadier swordsman. So no ranged, no ballistic, anything. It was just, explosions and swords, which very, very unique. Very handy against the Hive, I will say that. Having all the extra sword and yeah, sword users, this playthrough really helped, I think. I even had as close to a no damage build as I could, going back to Spoon here. He had Grenadier, so the Micro Grenadier, Medic, and Spotter. So the only damage he could do was with whatever his grenade launcher launched. So, and you get, like I say, if the Micro launcher, you get double grenades, but they do half the damage and have half the radius. So he would have about 6, or I think even up to 8 grenades. If I gave him starting grenades, so let's say Xenobiologist, we'd take that out and put in Chemist or whatever the fire one is. You know, you can start off with a fire grenade or an acid grenade or something, which could be quite good. Actually, that would be really good. Oh, I think we'll do that next time, Spoon. That's what we're doing for you next time. We know what we're doing now. Good, good. Yeah, really, really fun. Really fun. I think Bella went Gunner. And yeah, Gunner Infantry, so really good with the cannon. And then Skirmisher as the secondary. We just never used her much this playthrough. So never really trained that up. I think Pradeep was the only one who... Yeah, he had Infantry, Sentinel, and Gunner, so all related to his primary weapon. So he didn't really have any secondary use, was kind of the thing. So perhaps he could have gone Saboteur. So we'll need to reconsider that for next time. That said, I like that he's quite really, really good at his main weapon. Some people were interesting scouts, so the Magic Man here. Scout, Medic, Spotter, so he was pure sort of support and scouting, obviously. Yeah. Generally speaking, holo targeters are, I found, exceptionally useful kind of all throughout the playthrough, from early on till later on. They really proved to be valuable, making the most average of soldiers seem like pretty good shots. And who else? There's one more I want to focus on, that is Tom here, who had an interesting ability called Irregular. So low cover counters high, and he gains something else. I think the ability to reconceal, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, and gains concealment when not in visible range of any enemy. However, damage taken is increased by 50%, so you've really got to make sure you give them your best armor, or make sure they have high health. Something along those lines. That's what he had here, Juggernaut here, to sort of counter it. So that kind of helped a bit, I guess. Didn't really get many injuries, though, so... But wasn't on loads of missions. Well, it was on enough. But yeah, that was quite interesting. I think that Irregular, I'd like to give somebody else that next time as well. Just so we can play around with that. And I think that's pretty much it, you know? I think that's pretty much it for the RPG Overhaul mod. I will be looking into that some more. I would strongly recommend it, but like I say, do try and add in some extra enemies or something, you know, some sort of challenge to counter the boost that you get yourself, because I do think this makes XCOM stronger than base game XCOM. It's not like Lon War, where it arguably makes, you know, the Lon War classes or proficiency class mods, actually, especially, kind of make you a little bit weaker almost. It's a bit more balanced is the probably most appropriate word, but you know, weak is the other way to put it. Yeah, it was yeah, really good experience. So RPG Overhaul, double thumbs up from me. Alright, I'm gonna take a minute and then we're gonna move on to our next mod. Okay, I think the next one I want to talk about is the Hive mod, and this was a mod that added an additional faction to the game that operated independently from XCOM and from the aliens themselves. So you could have missions with, well, 4-way missions actually, if you have the Lost in there too. So they were, I have to admit, the Hive for the most part I really enjoyed. I thought some of the enemy designs were really good. They were a very formidable challenge and definitely encouraged the way I built out my squads and who I took out on missions that indicated they were Hive orientated missions. For the most part, the enemies I thought were pretty good. I liked the starter ones. They were like more fearsome versions of the Lost. I'm glad they didn't poison you. That was really a really good choice by the designer. It's not have everything poison. In fact, you had specific chrysalids for that, which were chrysalid infectors. I've got one very obvious gripe. If anybody's been watching this playthrough, then you'll know what this is. The Broodmother. Really good concept, but the execution does not work, I would say. The problem is she's already active. So she just runs around the map, spawns more chrysalids, which is fine. That's completely fine. But the problem is they suddenly decide to activate and they run halfway across the map and all focus on one of your troops. And I ended up losing one troop because of that. I quite easily could have lost another. Meerkat could have fallen, potentially, if he hadn't managed to just evade these other little chrysalids. Yeah, they were troublesome, but they ended up being the reason one of my soldiers died, I think. Maybe I'm wrong on that. I think I am wrong on that, actually. But it could have gone a lot more worse. A lot worse. So that is, I don't like the Broodmothers. I would maybe edit those out. If you do decide to use the Hive, I'm sure there's a way you can do that in the console, not console commands, for goodness sake. The INI files, you can probably omit them in some ways. Other than that, though, everything else I liked. Chameleons were terrifying. They were definitely, your end game, second half game enemies, shall we say. The problem I do have with them is you couldn't really formulate much of a defense against them other than hope they go for your sword, your Blade Storm users, really, which more often than not they did. Like I say, it often brought out half a squad that had Blade Storm, or, Reckoning, or whatever it is, the Skirmisher ability. So basically chameleons, they're these big white chrysalids, have about 19 health on Legend, and you take a shot at them, you do whatever damage you do, you're not going to kill that thing in one shot. It's got 19 health, very difficult to kill. So it then goes camouflaged. You can kind of work out where it is, and you can reactivate it if you run up to it. So you kind of have to shimmy around the map and sort of look through the walls, as it were, to see if you see an outline for it. And if you do that, you then run up to it. It loses its concealment, and then it runs off again, I think. So you've really got to make sure you're not fighting too many enemies, otherwise, you really can go on a wild goose chase with these chameleons at times. And to be honest, I still like them though. They were fearsome enemies, and they really did make me think about the way I was playing at the time of facing them. So all in all, I would say I still liked them. Who else was there? There were the ones that phase through walls and stuff. I forgot what they're called, wraiths possibly. Just guessing, but they were really good. That's the wraith suit, isn't it? I'm thinking of. But yeah, those were quite good. Good concept. Only ever saw them once, I think, maybe twice. I tell you what, there are two missions I'd recommend watching if you are interested in the Hive. I will put the thumbnails in the description, or I'll put links in the description to what they are. And if I remember to put thumbnails, I'll put them up now, as to show you which videos you're looking out for. One of them involves these wraith type ones, and the Juvenile Hive Queen. Now, that Juvenile Hive Queen I thought was brilliant, really. That was like a mini-boss, and it was so terrifying. That's a mission I would highly recommend watching anyway. It was wild. We had Trigger Happy go off like crazy. The chrysalids were going mental as well. We had the Hunter come in and get absolutely executed. we pretty much just kicked him out of the way and said, "Go away, Hunter. Like, we're dealing with real stuff right now." Yeah, the Hive Queen was mad, bringing up this, I can't remember what it was. It was like a pit that spewed out more chrysalids every turn, and it felt like we were in way over our heads, and we probably were. But the squad I took out was pretty versatile, did a pretty good job, and it was a really fun mission, so I really enjoyed that. I think the Juvenile Hive Queen was a really good addition to that mod. The other thing I have to ask is, where does the game end on that? What's the end game of the Hive? Because we never saw a Hive Queen, and I'm pretty sure there are Hive Queens, and they operate in a similar function to Rulers. Now, maybe because I wasn't playing with Rulers, it didn't come in, perhaps? Is that a compatibility thing? Possibly. Possibly is, possibly not. I didn't quite look through the descriptions of the mods that well to work that one out. But yeah, we didn't see a Hive Queen, so would have been nice if that came across earlier, since we've been fighting gatekeepers for ages now. I mean, we're back to April. We're a full year pretty much into the game, as it were. So I'd have expected to see a Hive Queen by now already. We did, however, have infectors, or infected chrysalid people, weird things. So another addition that I really like about the Hive is the way they have these zombie chrysalids, as it were. They they're infectors, they infect Lost, let's say, and then the Lost get up and become chrysalid, and they look all derpy, and it just ends up being really confusing, but really, really exciting. I had a mission where there were loads of them, and I couldn't tell who was fighting who, but it was an actual 4-way fight, and it was really interesting, must admit. Glad I had the high ground in that one. But yeah, so the Hive are a good addition, but I would definitely omit the Broodmother, if possible. Other than that, though, yeah, it was a good way to balance out the RPG Overhaul mod, that's for sure. So, yeah, the Hive gets a good recommendation from me, I must say. I don't think I've really got much else to say with it, other than I will put links to Hive-related videos from the campaign if you want. Like I say, one of them's against a juvenile Hive Queen, one of them is actually a retaliation mission, which was absolute madness, where there were about 30-odd chrysalids on the map to begin with, or something stupid, and then they all just infected all the resistance members and stuff like that, and then yeah, you just had 2 being produced every turn, and it was just, I had this ridiculous formation of like 3 like Bladestorm Rangers essentially, 2 Overwatch specialists, and 1 medic. Sounds like I'm doing the Days to Christmas. But yeah, that was the only formation I could go in with for a squad, and they did really well, but it was an absolute struggle, and we nearly had somebody die quite early on, really. Really difficult mission. So the Hive definitely adds an extra layer of difficulty, so keep that in mind. Really do keep that in mind. It is more difficult than, you know, your vanilla. Yeah, but strong mod. So I think I'll leave that there for the Hive, and we'll move on to our final mod. And our final mod is the Bio Division. This has had plenty of screen time in various other people's playthroughs before, so I'll probably not say a lot on it. But basically, it's kind of like a more difficult version of vanilla, really, for Advent. So Advent themselves get a kind of like an elite set of specialist troops who have an acid focus. They tend to have more health, more armor. They're usually immune to, or they have, I guess, a reduced effect to shred, as well as reduced no effect to acid burn as well. They themselves use acid in their attacks, so acid grenades. There's a couple of custom-made units, enemies as well, within them. In fact, let's cast our minds back to, aside from the normal troops and all that, there was an early mission I had where they were just bio-lost. It was really weird. Really interesting, though. I really liked it. They were quite cool, I must say. Another little thing that they do with Bio Division is the faceless, Bio Faceless. So you can shoot a trooper. This trooper's behaving like a trooper. They'll even take a shot at you, I think. And then once you take a shot on them, or you get too close, probably I think it's when you take a shot on them, they then transform. They'll take the damage, thankfully. They take the damage and they'll transform into a faceless. So I actually quite like that addition. I'm fine with that. It's a bit annoying because they usually have more health than the regular trooper they just were. But sure, you know what? That's fine. I can usually make that work. Yeah. Most of the enemies were just more difficult versions of their basic selves. The ones I found a bit too difficult were Bio Berserkers. I think they straight up need to be nerfed a little bit. The constant regeneration of armor feels excessive. They were too much. They are nasty too. If you get too close, I believe they have Bladestorm or, you know, something to that effect. So, you know, if you move within close range to them, that's it, they're smacking you in the face. Which is not good. So, yeah, Bio Berserkers, watch out for those. If there was one enemy you had to omit, that's the one I would omit. But you can, you know, if you want that extra challenge, keep them in there. Just hope you don't get Bio Berserkers and then Broodmothers on the same mission. If you're using the Hive as well, so... yeah, I really didn't make it too easy for myself this campaign, which I'm glad because it made for some good content. But yeah, the Bio Berserkers are ridiculous. Also, they have these mad tier 2 mechs that are a bit noisy and pretty powerful, quite scary, because I don't know what they can do other than, you know, kill one of my troops from this playthrough. I think I lost one to a Biomech Trooper, that's it, yeah. Lost somebody to that thing because it could work out where my trooper was, even though he was out of sight, so... Don't know how that works, but anyway. Yeah, Biodivision's, pretty strong. I wouldn't use both Biodivision and the Hive. I'd maybe just focus on just a Biodivision enemy. Maybe add in a couple of little extra individual enemies if you wanted, but I wouldn't go with both. It just basically is a more difficult vanilla, I would say. So, because you've got more health to get through, more armor to get through, and it does make it a more appropriate challenge, I think, than vanilla XCOM. So, I think that's a suitable place for something like Biodivision. In terms of story, there is nothing to Biodivision. They are just an extra an extra section of Advent, basically. They're there sometimes. They're there most missions. I had one mission where it said they were going to be there, and none of them were there. Then the next mission, it didn't specify any Biodivision, and there were loads of them. It's a bit weird. So I think that was a bit broken. But yeah, they're fine. They're pretty good. They're pretty good. Bio-Vipers are quite terrifying. They explode upon death or when you shoot at them, so stay, keep yourself at least 2 tiles away from them. In fact, that's kind of a general rule of thumb with bio-enemies. The shield ones, they were kind of cool, actually. They were these shielded... So they had like a riot shield. I've forgotten what they were called. But they could deflect shots, and they were cheesy as anything. They don't use cover. They run in the same way that like a mech would run, in a way. And they had like a shotgun, so you just had to make sure you keep your distance from them. I think they had a shotgun. But yeah, anytime I found I used my gunslingers really struggled against them, because it seemed like pistol shots were more susceptible to deflections. So that kind of sucked. But it was, they were interesting. They made again, they really had to make me think about how I took on what was on the field at the time. There were many turns where I just ignored them because I knew they would want to get in closer. They had quite low mobility, so you kind of just sort of go, all right, let's back away from them and deal with everybody else first, and then we focus fire on the riot dude, whatever it's called. So yeah, there you go. I think that pretty much sums up Biodivision. Just a few quick notes on that. I would say I'd recommend that if you're looking for like just one extra mod to give you a slightly different flavour for your playthrough. Adds a bit of extra challenge. If you purely vanilla and then add Biodivision, that would work. That would work as a playthrough concept. Yeah, pretty straightforward. Or if you want to have RPGO, just having that and then Biodivision just to add some more difficult enemies, yeah, that absolutely works as well. Definitely. So there we go. Any other notes? I used the Armored Viper mod again. That definitely made this playthrough a lot easier. Am I going to use it again? Yeah, probably. Because I was able to get the Viper Gatling gun, and that was really kind of awesomely powered. I'm not going to lie. I might use that again. It is too good. I'll definitely be using the Akimbo class mod next time. That's for sure. Anything else? Any other mods? No, that was pretty much it. It was just those 3 mods I wanted to talk about. So all in all, I would say I'd recommend them all. RPG Overhaul is a blast. Some really, really nice customization on that. The Hive is an amazing concept. I just feel like there's 1 or 2 things that one thing that brought it down, and that was Broodmothers. They just aren't quite. This is obviously the only way they can be programmed, I'm guessing. Perhaps. And then Biodivision is just like a, Legend Plus. I guess is the best way I'd put that. It's Legend Plus Biodivision, just a bit more difficult than your regular standard XCOM. So there we go. So I hope, if you were looking for some notes on those 3 mods, or any of the 3 mods, I hope you got something out of that. Didn't go into too much depth, just some brief notes on it. Yeah, I think I'll leave it there. So thank you very much for watching, and I will see you next time.